October 7th, 1959, 3 p.m. 300 people filled St. Philip's Church in Harlem for Bumpy Johnson's funeral, and in the front row, the man who'd ordered the hit sat smiling as the pallbearers carried the coffin to the altar. Wait, because what happened when that coffin opened didn't just prove Bumpy Johnson was alive. It sent a message that echoed through New York's underworld for the next decade and made every rival who'd ever thought about moving against him reconsider everything they knew about power. Big Mike Richardson sat in the front pew wearing a $400 charcoal suit and his best sympathetic face. He'd gotten the call 3 days earlier. Bumpy Johnson was dead, shot outside Small's Paradise on 135th Street at 11:47 p.m. on October 4th. 250 witnesses, blood on the sidewalk, body carried away in an ambulance. Big Mike had opened a bottle of 20-year-old scotch that night, poured himself 3 fingers, raised the glass to the empty chair across from him. To the king, he'd said, "Long live the king." Now he sat 15 feet from Bumpy's coffin, and he couldn't stop smiling. To understand what happened in that church, you need to understand Harlem in 1959. The numbers racket was pulling in $30 million a year. Policy banks on every corner, runners collecting bets from factory workers, waitresses, taxi drivers, a nickel here, a dime there. It added up, and Bumpy Johnson controlled 60% of it. Big Mike Richardson controlled maybe 15%. He wanted more. Big Mike had come up fast, too fast, some people said. Started as an enforcer for Dutch Schultz's old crew in the early 40s, worked his way up, built his own organization by 1955, ran numbers in East Harlem, had 40 men on his payroll, cleared $200,000 a year. But Bumpy's territory was the prize. Lenox Avenue, 125th Street, 7th Avenue, the Apollo Theater District. That's where the real money was. Big Mike had been planning this for 6 months. The hit, the takeover, the new order. He'd recruited Eddie Razor Thompson, the best triggerman in New York, paid him $15,000 up front, promised another $35,000 when Bumpy was confirmed dead. Eddie had a reputation. 12 confirmed kills, never missed, never got caught. 3 weeks earlier, Big Mike had made his decision. Bumpy Johnson had to go. They'd met in the back room of a social club on 116th Street. Big Mike, Eddie the Razor, and 2 of Big Mike's most trusted lieutenants. Cigarette smoke thick enough to cut. A single light bulb hanging from the ceiling. Big Mike laid out the plan. Small's Paradise, Thursday night. Bumpy always sits at table 9. Back wall, clear view of the door. He'll have 2 guys with him, maybe 3. You take him clean. Headshot. No witnesses who can identify you. Eddie nodded slowly. And after you disappear for 6 months. Miami, I got a place set up. When you come back, Harlem's ours. What Big Mike didn't know was that his driver, a man named Marcus who'd worked for him for 3 years, had been on Bumpy's payroll for the last 8 months. Marcus made $7 a week from Big Mike. Bumpy paid him $50, and on October 3rd, the day after that meeting, Marcus walked into Bumpy's second-floor office above the Red Rooster on 138th Street and told him everything. Bumpy sat behind his desk, gray fedora, with the black band pushed back on his head. He didn't move as Marcus talked, didn't interrupt, just listened. When Marcus finished, Bumpy reached into his desk drawer and pulled out an envelope. $500 in unmarked bills. You did good, Marcus. Now here's what you're gonna do. October 4th, 11:47 p.m. Small's Paradise was packed. 250 people. Thursday night crowd. Jazz band on stage. Waitresses moving between tables. Bumpy Johnson sat at table 9, wearing his trademark 3-piece suit. Navy blue, Italian wool. 2 men with him. Big Jerome on his left, Little Tommy on his right. Eddie the Razor walked in at 11:43 p.m., ordered a drink at the bar, waited. watched. Bumpy laughed at something big. Jerome said, took a sip of whiskey, relaxed, unaware. Or maybe he wasn't unaware. Maybe Bumpy knew exactly who was standing at that bar, with his hand in his coat pocket. Eddie made his move at 11:47 p.m., walked past table 9, drew the .38 special, chrome finish, worn grip, aimed, fired twice. The sound cut through the music like thunder. People screamed. Bumpy jerked backward. Blood spread across his white shirt. He slumped forward onto the table. Big Jerome dove for cover. Little Tommy pulled his own gun. But Eddie was already gone. Out the side exit, into an alley, into a waiting car. 250 people saw it happen. The ambulance arrived at 11:52 p.m. Paramedics loaded Bumpy's body, drove to Harlem Hospital. Pronounced dead on arrival at 12:14 a.m., October 5th. Cause of death: 2 gunshot wounds to the chest. Next of kin notified. Body sent to Henderson's funeral home on Lenox Avenue. Big Mike got the call at 1:30 a.m., poured that scotch, smiled. Here's what Big Mike didn't know. The blood on Bumpy's shirt? Stage blood. Theater grade. The kind they used at the Apollo for dramatic productions. Cost Bumpy $12 from a supply shop on 42nd Street. The 2 gunshots? Blanks. Eddie's gun had been loaded with blanks since 9 p.m. that night. How? Marcus had switched Eddie's ammunition while Eddie was in the bathroom at the social club the night before the hit. Eddie never checked. Why would he? He trusted Big Mike's operation. The body the paramedics loaded into the ambulance? That was Roosevelt Rosie Williams, a local actor who'd done Shakespeare at the Lafayette Theater. Bumpy paid him $500 to play dead for 6 hours. Rosie wore a wig, fake blood, and kept his eyes closed while the paramedics checked his pulse. One of the paramedics, a man named Lewis, was on Bumpy's payroll, had been for 5 years. Lewis confirmed death at the hospital. Body went straight to Henderson's funeral home. Henderson's owner, James Henderson, had known Bumpy since 1932. The body in the funeral home's back room was Rosie, who got up after 2 hours, washed off the fake blood, collected his $500, and went home. And Bumpy watched the whole thing from the roof of the building across from Small's Paradise. Binoculars, clear view. He saw Eddie enter, saw the shots fired, saw the ambulance arrive, saw Big Mike's car pull up 20 minutes later to confirm the kill. While Big Mike was playing checkers, Bumpy was playing chess, 3 moves ahead. Always. Big Mike heard about the funeral on October 6th, St. Philip's Church, 3 p.m. the next day. Open casket. He decided to attend. Why not? Pay his respects, show his face, establish his presence as the new power in Harlem. He even bought a new suit for the occasion. October 7th, 3 p.m. St. Philip's Church. The church was packed. Not just packed, overflowing. 300 people, policy runners, numbers bankers, street soldiers, bartenders, waitresses, shop owners, people who'd known Bumpy for 30 years, people who'd worked for him, people who'd feared him, people who'd respected him. Big Mike walked in at 2:55 p.m. 5 minutes early. He wanted the front row, wanted everyone to see him, wanted to make a statement. He sat down, adjusted his tie, looked at the closed coffin at the front of the church. Mahogany, brass handles, expensive. He smiled. The Reverend Marcus Garvey Jr., St. Philip's senior pastor, stood at the pulpit at 3 p.m. sharp. Gray hair, kind face, voice that carried to the back of the church without a microphone. He'd known Bumpy Johnson for 25 years, married him to his second wife in this very church in 1949. Now he was here to bury him. We gathered today, Reverend Garvey began, to say goodbye to a man who was many things to many people. Big Mike listened, nodded at appropriate moments, kept his sympathetic face on. Around him, women dabbed at tears with handkerchiefs. Men stared at the floor. The whole church felt heavy, grief in the air like humidity. Bumpy Johnson, the Reverend continued, was a protector, a strategist, a man who believed that loyalty was the highest currency, and today we honor his memory. The eulogy lasted 12 minutes. Big Mike checked his watch twice. When it ended, the Reverend nodded to the pallbearers. 6 men in black suits. They stepped forward, positioned themselves around the coffin, lifted it slowly, carried it to the center of the altar, set it down gently. The Reverend looked at the congregation. The family has requested that we view the body before the burial. Let us pay our final respects. He reached for the coffin lid, lifted it slowly. The hinges creaked. The sound echoed in the silent church. Big Mike leaned forward, wanted to see Bumpy's face one last time, wanted to memorize this moment, the moment he won. The coffin opened. It was empty. No body, no satin lining disturbed by weight, no flowers inside, just empty space and the smell of fresh wood. 300 people gasped. Some stood up. Others leaned forward. Everyone stared. The Reverend's face showed no surprise. He just stepped back and let people see. Big Mike's smile vanished. His hands gripped the pew in front of him. His mind raced. Empty. How? Why? Where was the body? Was this some kind of mistake? Did Henderson send the wrong coffin? Then he felt it. A tap on his left shoulder. Gentle. Deliberate. Big Mike froze. The tap came again. He turned his head slowly, looked over his shoulder. Bumpy Johnson stood directly behind him, alive, breathing, wearing a charcoal gray 3-piece suit, his gray fedora, and an expression that made Big Mike's blood turn to ice water. Surprised, Bumpy said quietly. The church erupted. People jumped to their feet. Shouts, gasps. Someone screamed. Someone else laughed. The sound built and built until it was deafening. Big Mike couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. He just stared at Bumpy Johnson, the man he'd watched die 3 days ago. Bumpy reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, unfolded it slowly, placed it in Big Mike's hand. It was a funeral program, St. Philip's Church, but the name on it wasn't Bumpy Johnson. It was Michael Big Mike Richardson. Funeral date, October 14th, 1959, 1 week from today. This was supposed to be your funeral, Mike, Bumpy said, his voice low enough that only Big Mike could hear over the chaos. I had it printed 2 weeks ago. After Marcus told me about your plan, I figured I'd give you a preview, let you see what it feels like, sitting in the front row, watching your own coffin. Big Mike's hands shook. The program trembled. Bumpy, you thought you could take Harlem? Bumpy's voice stayed calm, controlled. You thought you could put a contract on me. You hired Eddie the Razor, paid him $15,000, promised him another $35,000. You think I don't know everything that happens in my city? It was business, Big Mike whispered. Just business. Business. Bumpy nodded slowly. See, that's the thing about business, Mike. It requires trust, and you broke that. So here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna stand up. You're gonna walk out of this church, and you're gonna leave Harlem. Tonight. You got 12 hours. After that, this program becomes real. Big Mike tried to speak. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. 12 hours, Bumpy repeated. He looked at his watch. It's 3:16 p.m. That means you got until 3:16 a.m. tomorrow. If you're still in Harlem after that, they'll find you in the Hudson River wearing concrete shoes. And Mike, next time I throw a funeral, I won't be attending it. You will. Bumpy stepped back, nodded to 2 men standing near the exit. They moved closer. Not threatening, just present. Big Mike stood on shaking legs. The funeral program slipped from his hands, fell to the floor. He didn't pick it up. He just walked down the aisle, past 300 pairs of eyes. past people he'd known for years, past enemies, past allies, out the church doors, into the October afternoon sunlight. He never looked back. Behind him, Bumpy Johnson stood at the altar next to his own empty coffin. The Reverend started laughing. Then someone else laughed. Then the whole church was laughing. Not cruel laughter, amazed laughter. The kind of laughter that comes when you witness something you know you'll be telling your grandchildren about. That man, someone said, loud enough to hear, just attended his own funeral and scared his killer half to death. Here's what happened in the next 24 hours. Big Mike Richardson went straight to his apartment on 145th Street, packed 2 suitcases, called his driver. Marcus answered. "Where you want to go, boss?" Big Mike hung up. He couldn't trust anyone. He walked to the bus station, bought a ticket to Philadelphia, got on the 6:30 p.m. bus, left Harlem at 6:47 p.m. He'd been gone 5 hours and 31 minutes. He had 6.5 hours left on Bumpy's deadline, but he wasn't taking chances. Big Mike's organization collapsed within 48 hours. His lieutenants scattered. His territory got absorbed by Bumpy's operation. The $200,000 a year Big Mike had been clearing, it went to Bumpy. The 40 men on Big Mike's payroll, half of them asked Bumpy for jobs. Bumpy hired 12 of them, sent the rest packing. Eddie the Razor heard about the funeral 3 days later. He was in Atlantic City, waiting for his final payment. The payment never came. He tried calling Big Mike's number, disconnected. He asked around, heard the story. The empty coffin, the shoulder tap, Bumpy alive. Eddie left New Jersey that night, went to Chicago, never came back to New York. Years later, in 1967, a reporter tracked him down, asked him about Bumpy Johnson. Eddie said, "That man's not human. You can't kill him. I put 2 bullets in his chest and watched him fall. Then I went to his funeral, and he was standing there like nothing happened. You believe in ghosts?" "I do, because I created one." Word spread through New York's underworld like wildfire. Within 1 week, every mob boss, every street hustler, every policy banker from the Bronx to Brooklyn knew the story. Bumpy Johnson attended his own funeral, scared his rival into fleeing the city, took over his territory without firing a shot. The story got bigger each time it was told. In some versions, Bumpy rose from the coffin like Lazarus. In others, he appeared in a cloud of smoke. The truth was dramatic enough, but legends don't need truth. They need impact, and the impact was clear. You don't move against Bumpy Johnson. You don't plan his death. You don't hire triggermen, because Bumpy's always 3 moves ahead. He knows before you know. He plans before you plan. And when you think you've won, when you're sitting in the front row at his funeral with a smile on your face, that's when you feel the tap on your shoulder and realize you never had a chance. Other rivals took note. There'd been rumblings before October 1959, talks of alliances against Bumpy, quiet meetings in back rooms, discussions about territory redistribution. All of that stopped after the funeral. Nobody wanted to end up like Big Mike. Nobody wanted to flee their own city in the middle of the night. The funeral became a teaching moment. Old-timers told young hustlers the story. "This is how Bumpy operates," they'd say. "This is why he's survived 30 years in a business where most men don't survive 5. It's not just about being tough. It's about being smart. It's about chess, not checkers." St. Philip's Church kept that empty coffin for 3 weeks. People would stop by just to look at it. Some left flowers. Some left playing cards. Someone left a note that said, "The greatest magic trick Harlem ever saw." Reverend Garvey eventually moved it to the church basement, but for years afterward, when someone new joined the congregation and asked about it, the Reverend would smile and say, "That's the coffin Bumpy Johnson used to attend his own funeral." The funeral program with Big Mike's name on it, Bumpy had it framed, hung it in his office above the Red Rooster. It stayed there until Bumpy died in 1968. 9 years later, natural causes, heart attack. He was 62 years old, and when they held his real funeral at the same church, over 500 people attended. No empty coffin this time, but everyone who'd been there in 1959 remembered. They told the story to people who hadn't been there. The legend grew. In the 1970s, a journalist writing a book about Harlem's underworld tracked down Marcus, Big Mike's old driver, who'd been Bumpy's informant. Marcus was in his 60s by then, living in Queens, retired. The journalist asked him about the funeral. "I was there," Marcus said. "Sitting in the back. I saw Big Mike's face when that coffin opened. I saw him turn around and see Bumpy. You know what Big Mike looked like? Like a man who'd seen the devil. And maybe he had. Because Bumpy Johnson was the devil you didn't want to cross. Not because he was violent, because he was smart. He could have killed Big Mike that day, had 20 men in that church who would have done it on his word. But he didn't. He let Big Mike live. Sent him away. You know why? Because dead men can't spread stories. Dead men can't warn others. Big Mike spent the rest of his life telling people what happened at that funeral, and every person he told learned the same lesson. Don't mess with Bumpy Johnson. October 7th, 1959. 300 people watched a coffin open empty. One man felt a tap on his shoulder and fled Harlem forever. And the legend of Bumpy Johnson grew to mythical proportions. If this story hit you, smash that subscribe button. We're telling the Bumpy Johnson stories history forgot. Drop a like if you think Bumpy was the smartest man in Harlem.